When you get Xfinity Internet, Flex is included free, and finding what to watch on TV is now as easy as popcorn. This is a way better way to watch.
Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to get a great offer on internet and add Flex for free. Restrictions apply.
The Labor Day event's here at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com. Shop 40 to 70% off almost everything. Plus, tanks from $5, shorts from $10, and jeans from $20 through September 7th at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com.
All right. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Matt, and he sent me a document, a very interesting kind of philosophical treatise. The title of the work that he has written is A Methodology of Control and Surrender in Our Shared Reality. So he's going to kind of talk about his view of really reality and expound on a variety of different topics within that kind of outlook. So Matt, are you there?
Hi, William. Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for reaching out to me. Can you talk about what led you to write this treatise, a methodology of control and surrender, and give the kind of audience an idea of what your overarching view is, and then add an intro to that about your ideas?
Yeah, sure. So I originally studied sort of political science and noticed that things that I was being taught didn't actually add up. The way in which people were talking about, politics and their actions were not in sync. So, I started researching myself into these sort of tricks and the tricks that people use to control people. And I, about a decade ago, started upon this theory that was based on, a methodology of political science or a methodology of comparison of epistemology. And this is where I've come up with this concept, which I believe, I've created to sort of help people to be more confident in their belief in God, and in understanding the weakness of the control mechanism.
Gotcha. So would you juxtapose control mechanisms with this kind of objective reality of an external Godhead?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So please, no, go ahead. Please continue.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to sort of, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to you for the work that you do. I think that, illuminating the public as to sort of cults and groups of that type, I think is really something to be admired. I just wanted to, thank you for that. But what I wanted to sort of talk about is the methodology is to sort of allow us to understand our reality by comparing the subjective and objective divides. The subjective is everything we can see with our eyes. It is everything of the impermanent world which we live in. And the objective is everything else. So God, love, chi, perhaps what happens when we die, and the unknown. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, I sort of stumbled across this as part of a political science thesis, but through years of research and contemplation, I've realized it provides a framework for understanding and improving our relationship with God by acknowledging how little we can understand about it or him or whatever, however we view God. It seeks to sort of give strength to those that would be manipulated by the complex control system. It sort of reveals the weakness of any theory that is based on any form of duality, such as New Age doctrines or paganism, or theories that seek to sort of provide answers for things which we can't know about, for example, like how God looks or what will happen in the future or anything like that.
Gotcha.
So what I've found is that there are central objective truths that we can be sure exist, such as God and love, but that humans add layers of subjective complexity on top of these truths to manipulate, control, or simply to make money. And this is a lot of the work that you do, is showing these tricks and the organizations that sort of put these out into society and manipulate people. I'm going to do a couple of sort of Bible passages as well to try and, bring, so we can all sort of understand together. In James, they say, submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And this is a really key aspect. It's important to keep this very simple. People like to talk a lot, and it just has to be simple, not explained, add into
Go ahead, please continue.
Dualities. The world is a massive subjectivity. We are born with no ego. Slowly, we learn the ways of the world, and we build our ego, which is a massive subjectivity, and it is of this world. We're given free will and everything that comes along with that. Through indoctrination, we allow dualities to be born within us. We can believe these concepts. In reality, how we are inside of us does not age and is not subject to what we are told outside of us unless we let it be. This is really key. The young, easily manipulable, and the weak-minded are far more susceptible to this form of indoctrination and manipulation. And I think this is something we see a lot of. So, for example, like the son of Sam, I was watching the documentary on Netflix. I know you've discussed that. And we see a weak-minded individual under a form of mind control. And I think, when that mind control came in or whatever is up for, I'm not an expert on that. But we can see, throwing ideas, weakness, lusting for power, these sort of things from external sort of impetus.
Right.
The more that we hold on to the subjective, the further we move from God. And we need to let go of the subjective and the things we have learned and seen in this world. And a good way of understanding subjectivity in our reality is by considering Kirch's diagram regarding the problem of diversity, which is cited in the Secret Teachings of All Ages. Here we can see 18 objects, and it counts the number of ways in which they can be combined. And through considering this concept, we can explain how life can never become monotonous. In terms of combinations,
let me see if I can pull that up for the screen so people can see that. Let's see if we can. This is interesting. It's Athanasius Kirchner, right?
Correct.
And he was kind of almost like the German Leonardo da Vinci. So super smart, polymath type guy. So this is showing the complexity of human life, correct? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Of everything we can see.
Gotcha.
And in terms of combinations, I can't even count.
Millions of combinations, probably.
Yeah, trillions.
Trillions.
30 digits after the one, something like this.
Gotcha.
And from that, it's evident that infinite diversity is possible. For the countless parts of the universe may be related to each other in incalculable number of ways. So it's evidence clearly that it's easy to get lost in this reality or in complexity itself. And we find a lot of people doing that.
Gotcha.
You can do it for your entire life quite easily. In Ephesians, they say, in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. And what that's essentially saying is that to give yourself over to the subjective it's disobedience from God, and you're sort of allying, I suppose, in a way with the devil.
Yeah, and you can see kind of corollaries within the Bible where you're supposed to be focusing on kind of the objective, as you would say, maybe put your coins in heaven, think about your heavenly reward. So you're kind of what's going to matter if you get all the money in the world and lose your soul. So you see those similar themes are interspersed clearly, for me, very clearly in the teachings of Christ. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. Yeah. So, I believe that God is the creator, and nothing can be created like life itself in our reality, and therefore God exists. It's quite a simple thing for me personally. I know a lot of people would have different opinions, but that's fine. And in Exodus, God created the world and created duality, also using His voice or through sound, and I think that's key here. That being said, I believe God is unknowable, and what happens before or after life is unknowable, and that's all subjective fact. Some people pretend to know elements of these unknowable areas to control others, and that's why I thank God for people like James Randi, whose $1 million challenge sought to reward anyone who could demonstrate a supernatural or paranormal ability under agreed upon scientific testing criteria. And that challenge tested over 1,000 people and not one was successful. And I mean, is it that these things exist but can't be proven empirically? Perhaps. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I'll come on to that.
Okay.
And whether you believe this next part or not is not really essential to the overall theme, but I think it just sort of illuminates it a little bit. So the concept is that Pan plays his pipes and plays the note to this reality. Indeed, he is this reality. We live in the reality of dualities, each of which is subjective. It's an ambivalent reality. If we consider another version of Pan or Satan to further evidence the point, the Baphomet embodies our reality. The Mason's pursuit is to achieve dominion over this reality through the mastery of all dualities, mastery over the subjective.
You could even throw that in witchcraft and everything like that. If you look at the pentagram, it's earth, air, fire, water, spirit, but they have control over everything. That's what their view is. So it actually, you could almost argue it's satanic or Satanism or occultism has that view of mastering this reality. Sorry. That's the song of Black Sabbath, right? Master of Reality, or is it their album? I don't remember. Sorry.
I'm not sure, but I totally agree. The evidence is there. Through this mastery, they can become the enlightened individual, the embodiment of 666. And in this way, they can, in their opinion, become a god themselves, the ability to create themselves, the power of which is ultimately God's alone. This allows them, in their opinion, mastery of the subjective and the ability to become a master magician or scientific occultist. These people produce repeatable so-called magic. And whether one believes themselves to be a black magician is again subjective and involved in duality, which is of this reality which we see. They would see their abilities as manipulating the objective, but again, it is of this reality and hence of the devil. So, going back to music, why do musicians flash the devil horns?
Well, probably to show a symbol to the fellow believers, right? So the insiders know, and the outsiders just kind of go, "Oh, he's just making weird hand signs," right? So it's dual meaning, dual approach, dual symbolism, maybe for the insiders and not outsiders.
Yeah, quite possible. But I believe it's also like a thing. Firstly, I think they're manipulating the audience through sound for self sort of aggrandization, and secondly, they're manipulating the subjective of personal gain. And it's almost like a badge of honor to say, I'm powerful, I'm manipulating you,
Right. No, but that's also another thing. Sorry to interrupt, but that's another theme within occultism. It's almost like something I've seen almost with every occult group is not just the doctrines of the Satanism, but how to manipulate other people. It's almost like I've said it before, like a handmaiden in the occult. And it's even in occultists who haven't even read each other. It's the same thing. How do you manipulate other people? I actually talked about that yesterday about the vampire cult of this kid, Rod Farrell, 16 years old. That was part of his doctrine, even at that early age. So sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely true. I think it's almost something that people come to naturally when they're that way inclined. And again, both those concepts are of the devil or of this reality. So that, in my opinion, is the trick of life. The devil is in the detail. In Thelema, it's love as the law, love under will, i.e. the nature of the law of Thelema is love, but love itself is subsidiary to finding and manifesting one's authentic individual selfish purpose. Again, the subjective over the objective. We see it time and time again. But at what point does subjectivity become possible? And when does the objective become the subject? Anything in this reality, when looked at in isolation, is subjective. Every leaf on a tree could be studied and documented, every snowflake. Although seen as pseudoscience, the concept of life force or chi is well established. And we can see evidence of the appreciation of this concept in Eastern and Western culture.
Right. It's named a different force, right? So there's different names for she. Someone I can't, vril. Different cultures have a different name for that kind of energy or life force. Sorry.
It's a central part of Chinese traditional medicine. Acupuncture seeks to manipulate the energy pathways in the human body, and we can perhaps see similar practices with the use of menhirs on ley lines. It might also be seen as life force, these sort of things. But again, not something that can be empirically proved. This is the Bible talks about surrendering to God, and in other words, surrendering to the objective and foregoing the ambivalent benefits of the subject. But how, in my opinion, do we do this? I think that firstly, we must not lie. We must be true to ourselves, and we must forgive ourselves for not achieving the things our subjective reality has convinced us we must achieve. The Lord will provide. Put your love in the Lord, as they say in the Bible. And here's a piece from the Bible about putting love in God. In Thessalonians,
Right.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's the central tenet. It's kind of like God's will, right? Love God, do God's will instead of your own will. So you can see that differentiation between Thelema and Christ's teaching, where you're supposed to kind of, not in an Islamic sense, submit, but you're supposed to give in to the will of God over your own kind of will, or, not give yourself up, but definitely understand what God's ideas are. Sorry.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I mean, my wife is a Christian, and we discuss these sort of concepts, and very much so. And that's why I'm referring to the Bible, because I believe that there's a lot of good in it. Whether people say, "Oh, it's been rewritten here," or whatever, or this person controlled it. I know you've spoken to people who have said those things. I still feel that there's a lot in there that's very good and can help people to live a good life. So.
Yeah, even some of those critiques of like control, you can still compare these so-called controlled Bibles by King James or whatever and somebody else, and there's a lot of more similarities than differences. And some stuff has been left out, but it's still, the themes are still there, in my opinion.
So this piece is from Thessalonians, and it says, "May the Lord direct your hearts to the love of God and to the steadfastness of Christ." And another piece about surrendering to God from Romans. "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." And I think these things back up the theory that you need to surrender to God, follow your heart. We all have the choice to utilize the subjective for good or bad, to control or uplift. Indeed, we can become addicted to this control, but we can let all of it go. I believe in objective love and surrender. But if I was asked about why we must live, I would say the following: we must consume that which was once alive to survive. And so I think we don't live in heaven. I think that can be quite clear. Considering when we are born, we have no recollection of past lives, it's logical that we lose this subjectivity or ego and go on as perhaps energy alone when we die. We come into this world from objective love or energy or God, and may leave us the same. I believe we are all God's children and are given free will. And the more selfish we are, and the more power we give up to our self-obsession, the further we move from God and the less love we have inside of us. So, I just wanted to talk briefly about my journey and how I got to this point. I had a simple upbringing, but I did, when I was younger, follow this objective and my ego, and I sought worldly pleasures and rewards. When I was younger, I did a lot of the Ouija board. I read the tarot and these sort of things. I spoke to entities and stuff like this. Ended up speaking to something really quite nasty. So through this, I'm not saying that I'm saying there's nothing bad in the world, but what I'm saying is that through surrender and through love, these things I don't believe, because we're not seeking them out. They can't damage us.
Is your worldview Christian, or are you referencing the Bible, or what is your, I would say some of these ideas about chi or life force may be something that I wouldn't say it's certainly not a central theme within Christianity. What's your worldview?
Yeah, for sure. I would agree that they're not Christian, but I think that, we need to, I was raised a Christian. I wouldn't say I wasn't a Christian. I think that many of the central sort of things I believe in, and It's just when subjective things get added on top, that's when I struggle with it.
There's 2 years of that in Christianity, I can assure you. I could write 10 books on all the additions to so-called Christianity, which are supposedly Christianity, which I could contend against. But yeah, I mean, that's why I recommend people read the Bible, is just because then you can see what the original statements were, right? Not what somebody else is telling you, what church is telling you. And I think it goes into the theme of your work here too, is that there's a lot of other additional stuff and stuff. But yeah, so do you believe, so to you, Christ isn't the Messiah, he's a teacher, but there's also kind of like maybe an Eastern influenced afterlife with energy?
No. I don't believe anything. I say that, yes, Christ could be the Son of God or not. I don't see these things as being integral to our experience. You know, I believe that if I follow my heart and follow love, that these things aren't important anyway. So, for example, whether the world is round or flat, you know, you had someone coming on trying to tell you the world is flat. You know, I think there's a lot more that, you know, bringing love into the world, I feel, is the most important thing that I should be doing. And in that way, I'll be doing what it probably says in the Bible anyway. Well,
it would. I mean, if you want to distill Christianity into two things, it's love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. So if you love people, then your half of that is fulfilled. The other half, I mean, you in your work here, you are saying that there's an external God, but your perception of that is not particularly within this maybe the original Christian outlook. Would you agree with that?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, you know, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I think this is really interesting. I think it's very fascinating. So I'm just kind of more curious about your outlook. I mean, you can say you're like, a lot of Christians are born into Christianity like me and you, but it doesn't necessarily, it's like putting a label on something. It doesn't mean that it's from the inside out. And then if it is, then it's like, well, what type of that is? Are you a Seventh-day Adventist, Mormon? Do you think that Christ was a hippie? You know, what's your full Christian? Because there's a lot of facets to even the teaching. So there's a lot of things in there. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but please continue.
I think these things are very important to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just, you know, the final bit about myself, and I think this will sort of help to bring that out a little bit. So while I was following the subjective and what people were telling me, you need to be rich, you need to be successful. So I went into a career in sales and I pushed myself to the limit, and so stressed I eventually got a disease called sarcoidosis. And during that, they told me, oh, you've got advanced cancer, before they actually worked out exactly what I had. And then I was sent to the Prince Charles Center for Alternative Medicine, and there I had ear acupuncture. And it made me very interested in the energy body and this concept, because, you know, perhaps it's not, something I discuss with my wife is that things like perhaps yoga or meditation aren't really viewed in a positive way in Christianity. And I think, you know, when I was listening to something, you know, Charlie Manson said about, that something to do with clearing your mind, that they would go and try and clear their mind and all of this. But ultimately what they're doing is manipulating. So it's not just purely clearing your mind.
Very well, I think in Manson's case, it's clearing your mind so he can put what he wants in, right? So that's the difference. That's the difference between a cult leader and maybe clearing your mind of all your worries and cares or whatever. Sorry.
Yes, totally agree. So anyway, I then went and tried to reduce stress, try and make my sort of work on my energy body and what was going on inside of me. And I traveled and I went to some sort of Buddhist temples in Thailand and started meditating there and was taught how to meditate. And there I, was able to, I learned to sort of stop my mind just from going and going and going and be able to really relax. And I feel like that's where I found love inside of me, without any emotions involved, something that is sort of very delicate and can be lost. But what I believe the most powerful thing that we have.
Do you still kind of practice that meditation? Do you have that kind of, I mean, in Thailand, it's Buddhism, right? So their practice is Thai Buddhism, or I don't even know what variation there are. But do you feel like that type of practice helped heal you?
I just think it helped mentally.
It's a form of healing, mental healing for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, not physical, but the mental mind-body connection is real. So I mean, if you're mentally in trouble, your body can definitely feel that. So I think that's for real. So that may be actually the foundation of a lot of illness, actually, psychosomatic or not, mind-body connection. Sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And then because I then learned Tai Chi, and I spent a long time learning Tai Chi, and I did it every day. And I just learned it, did it over and over and over again. And that, I think, is something wonderful. I think that everyone should practice.
So you're doing the kind of perform movements, things like that in time. That's kind of Falun Gong uses that as well, right? The modern, I think they integrate Tai Chi. I don't know. But yeah, I know I'm familiar with Tai Chi, but that's Chi, right? So you're not just manipulating your body, but you're trying to move those energies through the body. That's the intention, right?
Yeah, correct. And raising the sort of Chi level in the body. And again, I'm no expert. It's just something that I practice because I feel it has a real positive effect. And when I went to the classes, the people there were, either ill or, elderly. And I was probably the youngest person there because I was trying to get better from my illness. And I just think it's a very powerful thing. I think it's something that is not understood correctly.
It's not Western. I mean, I think the Westerners view that, but they don't know. They think it's a form of mere exercise. I think they don't see the deeper intent, I think, behind that practice. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely say so. I mean, I've tried some of my friends. I've tried to teach it to, etc. They just laugh. I mean, it's just not. There's no real understanding of it here. With some people, there is.
It's very Eastern, I would say. I mean, the idea of Qi isn't just Chinese, but they're much more Eastern, and some Westerners kind of tinker around with energies of the body. But yeah. There's a fascinating show. If you ever watch, it's a great documentary. It's called The Ring of Fire. And it's these two English guys go down to Indonesia and they look around and they found a Qi master and they couldn't figure out how he was doing it, but he had somehow powered his body like an energy with what you call, I don't know what they call it in Indonesia, but it's the same concept. But he was able, I'll send you the clip. It's really remarkable. He was able to force Qi out of his hands. And these guys could not figure it out. The Westerners were looking at him just like, what? This is like nothing I've ever seen. It's really something else. I'll send it to you. Ring of Fire. It's really a fascinating, ethnographic documentary too. I would recommend it to you and the listeners too. I'll see if I can put a link to it in the thing. But I think for somebody like you, you'd find it super fascinating if you're interested in Qi.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. And strangely, I recall one day sitting outside and we were doing a class, and it's going to sound really odd, but I remember sitting there outside and there was an elderly lady and she was doing it. I could see Qi coming out of her hands.
Wow.
And I mean, that's not the. If someone said that to me and I hadn't seen it, I would say, okay. Yeah. But once you witness something, and I think it's because you get onto that level anyway, you're at that sort of very relaxed level anyway. I don't think it's something you can usually see. But anyway, that's
That's interesting. Let me show you this. This is the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire, an Indonesian Odyssey with Lorne and Lawrence Blair. And they took a decade, but I think they're following like the Russell Wallace. They talk about human sacrifice, but there's a really fascinating one. I'll have to try to find the piece out of that. But this was done from the UK. It's in English, so you can check it out. But I would highly recommend this from 1988, way back in the day.
Oh, it's very interesting.
Yeah. No, there's a Qi tie-in to this too, but this little piece here on Wikipedia doesn't show it, but I would highly recommend people watch this. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So the next thing I want to talk about, and it's just it's just like a thing I thought I should mention, is that I also did DMT at one point and received some sort of messages when I was doing that.
How did you obtain it? Were you in ayahuasca or yage, or did you have like the distilled DMT?
Yeah, distilled. I have a friend of mine who made it, and I did it with him. I received a few messages. And the first one was that I was doing the right thing. And the second one was that I needed to look after more the female aspect in my life, which I thought was very, and I can't say how I got these messages, but it's very, very powerful.
So would your experience with that, would you say that that's positive?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the feeling of love that I got was so strong. I think that, perhaps for some people who aren't, because I'm quite grounded, I've done all these things, I've gone on this journey, and that's why I felt like I wanted to do it. As I said, I was a seeker, but once I'd done it, I would never do it again.
Interesting. So you only needed really one. Did you experience the thoughts? Did they come at you as an entity? They talk about like a green man or anything like that? Or was it just the ideas go into your head, or how did those ideas get transferred to you?
So I've done it, I think, 4 times, over about 6 months. And then the last time I thought, no, that's definitely it. And when I was getting the messages, it was when I was taking the most. And the 4th time, I think it was, on that evening, I did meet an entity, and it was sort of in front of me of many colors. And I didn't really realize, but then I could see it was sort of, it was moving as if alive. And I felt complete calm and love with this being. I wasn't seeking anything. I wasn't seeking escapism and then I came back, I had the messages, I knew what I needed to do.
Interesting.
And now I don't need to do that again.
Did you feel like you were taken out of time and space when you did that?
I mean, everything. Yeah.
Because they call it the spirit molecule. Like there's one supposedly view of DMT is that like it's a spiritual event, or other it's something else, but it's very unique. I've never done DMT, but I've heard it's a unique experience. I've never felt compelled really to do that. But I want to show you this video. I found it. This is it. This is watch this guy use chi. We'll take a little break out of here. Watch this. This is amazing. Do you have is the audio coming through? Is the audio coming through to you? Oh, okay, let's see this. Can you hear it now?
Lorne was suffering from a bad eye infection at the time, a cameraman's cause for panic. Lawrence had heard of a man who might be able to help and dragged me to him despite my reservations.
Is it in?
It's acupuncture.
You just relax and enjoy, Lord.
He uses acupuncture needles in the traditional points, but with a twist. Through them, he directs a form of electricity, as he calls it. But he doesn't draw the electricity from a wall socket. He claims to generate it within his own body. It was nothing like any acupuncture I'd ever had. I was getting really powerful electric shocks and couldn't control my movements at all. He says that what he does is no more supernatural than an electric eel, which also knows how to harness its yin and yang energies.
Yang, positive and negative, And my positive from here and my negative from here. And we meet together, this can get like electricity.
And is this because you're special? You have a special sort of
It's meditation every day.
It's meditation that does it.
Meditation every day. Like a yoga. But I study about 18 years.
18 years?
18 years. From my child before.
Can you project this energy through your hands only, or through other things as well?
Only my hands.
Only your hands.
Like you can touch me, like this. It's nothing, okay? It's my brain. It's like this.
Our sound recordist, Simi, was skeptical at first. Later, he told us that anybody could learn this. God had given us all the yin-yang polarity, but it takes discipline and meditation to awaken and control it. And you must be very aware of your emotions. This energy can be dangerous. It can kill as well as heal. Then he asked for our newspaper. Whatever he had done to our newspaper, it's how he'd healed my eyes that made me wonder. What do these people living in the shadows of the volcanoes still know that we of the West have forgotten?
Something else, huh?
Yeah.
Well, he says it's from God, but yeah. So anyway.
Who knows?
That's a hard one to explain away, but yeah. So anyway, sorry for the distraction, but I think it's kind of within the theme of what you were talking about. So so Tai Chi worked for you, right?
For sure.
And then would you say your experiences with Ouija and tarot were positive or negative? Or positive because you learned against it, or what?
It taught me that those are things that we don't need to be messing around with. I think that there are things that people perhaps don't understand, that there may be levels to this, and I believe the highest level is love, and that we need to live in love and let that be our sole motivation. If we don't see anything else, but it took a long time to reach that, and perhaps that's people's journey. I don't know.
So do you want to continue talking about your kind of methodology and worldview as far as genetic modification and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So the last point on that was that my wife's granddad actually did an exorcism. And it's just a point that there are things that we don't understand. There were children in the house and he was asked to exorcise the house. And again, do I believe it? Do I not? I don't know. But the fact is he was a priest and was asked to do that. So
he was a Christian priest, is that correct?
Yes. And
a Catholic?
Yeah, he was actually Church of England, so that's a vicar, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. That's right. I don't think there's Protestant priests, I'm not sure.
No. So, but anyway, I think that's my point. There are all these things going on, but that we don't really, and lots of people get involved in that sort of thing, and they, Aleister Crowley, channeling these sort of things. No, it's a major no from me, because I think there are probably different dimensions, realities. There are things that perhaps live in these places, or perhaps it's our subconscious. Who knows? But it's not for us to understand. So yeah. But anyway, I'll continue that. So we need to consider how the objective or life force or chi enters our reality. And we can see through things like fractal geometry that the shaping of matter follows certain principles. Things like phi or coastlines and perhaps the Mandelbrot set are examples of how this process can be seen with our own eyes. Life continually evolves, and this is why genetic modification is a bad idea for the most part, as it takes the genome in question out of the process of evolution. It is logical that the healthier we are, the more we respect our bodies and follow the renewal of our minds, the closer we will be to God. Many of us are scared to let go, scared of death, but through love there is nothing to fear. When we are obsessed and materialistic, this fear can be all-consuming and makes people seek truth from the subjective things that will make them feel better. And that's where divination comes in. The weak or those lacking in love seek answers in these areas, when all they need to do is trust in God and surrender to love. We are being tested, in my opinion, and God created this test. And anyone who seeks to manipulate or control other people for their selfish benefit or focuses only on the worldly and the impermanent is falling foul of this test. We have the opportunity to uplift and nurture, which usually results in personal sacrifice to the giver of these things. I believe that providing a strong foundation for others to grow in love is my destiny on this earth. But perhaps we all have our own destiny, and the closer we can come to the objective with purity in our hearts, the better we will understand what we must do. If we embrace this truth, those that would manipulate no longer have any power over us, and we can see their lies and fabrications far more easily. Their weakness and obsession with worldly subjective concepts is their undoing, but they will scream and shout about their power and importance. All we must do is trust in God, and they can hurt us no longer. Love is the strongest thing. And something from Luke. And he in answering said, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself."
Like I mentioned that earlier, but I forgot that you put that at the end of the paper. Yeah, really interesting. I mean, I think that you've kind of gone the route of a lot of people. There's a lot of people who've come out of the business world and gone on the far other side of the pendulum, myself included in some ways, man. When I was practicing law, I was miserable. So I kind of know, I can kind of sympathize with how you were, that process in your life. But I guess that's a learning experience all of us have to go, or a lot of us have to go through. But is there anything you'd like to leave us with? I mean, we're at 40 minutes. Any if people want to talk with you or pick your brain, is there social media you're willing to put out, or what are your, anything like that, or anything you'd like to leave?
Not really, no. I think that everything is contained with what I've said. I think it's everyone's own journey. And I just really want to thank you for your work. And,
Great. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time and a really interesting document. The document that he wrote is The Methodology of Control and Surrender in Our Shared Reality. And it's Matt from England. So thanks.
Nice.
All right, take care.
The Labor Day event's here at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com. Shop 40 to 70% off almost everything. Plus tanks from $5, shorts from $10, and jeans from $20 through September 7th at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com.
Experience gorgeous, lasting, high-quality hair color with Madison Reed. Find your perfect shade at madison-reed.com and get 10% off plus free shipping on your first color kit. Use code RADIO10.